Hello and welcome to this first Ostrich tutorial, and today we're going to take this beautiful Piper Aztec for a little training flight around Berlin, learn how to operate the aircraft somewhat by the book, and how to use the radio navigation equipment. As you see here on this map, we will take off in Berlin-Tegel and then use the Fürstenwalde viewer and the cluster viewer as navigation aids, and finally the ILS for the approach back into Berlin-Tegel runway 8 right. Our cruise altitude will be 3000 feet, so that we stay below the restricted airspace for most of the time, and we will do this flight under VFR rules. And I also want to point out that down in the video description you find the link to the Ostrich website, and there you find this tutorial in a written form, so that you can print it out and go along as you fly. And also the written version goes into greater detail with some points. And also you find there the checklist I will be using for download, so it's definitely worth checking out. And finally, before we start, I want to point out that the video tutorial will be comprised out of 3 parts. Now it's the first one where we start up the aircraft and taxi to the runway. Then the second part for takeoff and cruise. And the final part for approach, landing, on shutdown of the aircraft. But enough of this introductory talk. Let's go to the flight deck. So, now we are back in the cabin and we would start with the pre-flight checklist. And the first point is we have to check if all the necessary documents are on board. Our certificate of airworthiness, the registration of the aircraft, our pilot license, our medical, and all the necessary charts we would need. And it's a simulation, so we just can say everything's fine there. And in real world I wouldn't pass the first point because I don't have the pilot license. Second item on the checklist is the equipment. So we would check if we're going higher than 10,000 feet we would need oxygen. If we're going over long stretches of water we would need life vests, and so on and so forth. But it's a simulation, so again we say everything's fine. Then we go down and verify that our avionics switch down here is the off position. Then we verify that our gear lever is in down position, and we would go between our seats and put the fuel selectors both on. After this we can switch the battery master on, and you see the gear lights are coming alive, the yellow door ajar light is coming alive telling us the doors open, and our fuel gauges are coming alive as well, and we have about 50% in each tank. And at this point we would also check if we have adequate fuel on board, and for this 1 hour flight we would need about 20-25% of fuel depending on the winds, and with half of a tank we have more than enough. Then we would check our electric fuel pumps, so we just switch them on, and if we hear this annoying sound we know yes, our fuel pumps are working. After this we check that the alternator in-op lights here are off, and then we go between our seats and open the cowl flaps. And we do this so that when we are doing the walk around later on we have an easier job to inspect the engine cowling. After this we check our lights, and so we switch all the lights on, go to the outside and verify that all the lights are working. We have the anti-collision light here, we have the aft navigation light, then we have the green navigation light, landing light, taxi light, our landing light, red navigation light, and the wing light. So everything's nice and fine there. We go back to the cabin and switch all the lights off again. And you want to do this test fairly quickly, as you don't want to drain your battery more as necessary. In the real aircraft we would now lower the flaps, so that we have an easier job inspecting the bearings during the walk around. But the manual flap release isn't modeled, so we just pretend we did it. And then we can switch the master switch off again. We would verify that the magnetos are all in the off position, that our mixture levers are in the cut-off position. We would check that the trim is in the neutral position, as it is. And then we would do a quick control check. So this rudder is free and moving. Same for the yoke. Everything's nice here. and you see the aileron is working accordingly. Very nice. That's done. And then we verify that the parking brake is set. And with this, the pre-flight checklist is completed, and we now will do the workaround. Again, the workaround is not really modeled, so we just look around our aircraft, verify that all the wings are still attached, that we don't have big holes in the fuselage, and then we press Shift and 3 to open this window, remove the static elements, close the front baggage door and the back baggage door, and we make sure that the baggage doors are really closing. And with this, we call the workaround completed and without any concerns, and we return to the flight deck. So now we would check that the circuit breakers down here are all in, and then we switch the alternators on. We go between our seats, make a quick check of our crossfeed, and make sure that it's in the off position, and then we can switch the master switch on again, and this time also the avionics. And now you see our GPS is coming alive, the radios and the clock, and if not, you can switch them on individually like here. Then we would also switch our navigation lights on, so that the ground crew is able to see that our aircraft is under electric power, and also our vehicles on the apron have an easier job in seeing us. I mean, at these conditions of the day, it's not really a problem, but at night or in foggy conditions, it really helps to avoid collisions on the apron. Next thing to do is we want to get an overview over the weather conditions and which runway is in use. So we go to our radio stack, where we have the GPS in the center, but holds also our COM1 radio and the NAV1 radio. And here we have our COM2 radio, NAV2 radio, and up here the speaker select panel, what is usually COM1 on speaker, but we also can switch COM2 on speaker, or NAV1, or ADF, or whatever we need. And as you see here, when the frequency is underlined with this turquoise color, that means we can manipulate it. And to do it, we take the big knob for the numbers before the decimal point, and the small knob for the numbers behind the decimal point. And to get the weather information and airport information in Tegel, we would go to the ATIS and Tegel Airport. This is on 125.9. So at the moment the frequency is on standby, and by clicking this button we would put it from standby into active. And now we listen to our airport information. We have echo at 710 Zulu. Wind is nice, visibility is nice. Everything looks nice, runway 8 is in use. Very nice. So we can switch back again, and you should note down every information given in the ATIS, because at one point you will need it. The first thing we want to check now is how old our ATIS is. So we go to our clock, and you see it's 10 minutes after 7 UTC. That's exactly the time the ATIS is issued, so we got it fresh from the start. The ATIS gets updated every 30 minutes, so if you know your ATIS is already 29 minutes old, you probably want to wait this additional minute to get the current one. But ours is now 1 minute old, so we can use it. Very good. And the second point we want to take from the ATIS is we are planning to do a VFR flight. So the question is, are we legally allowed to do a fly under VFR conditions? And the first point is we will fly at 3,000 feet. And we will encounter some clouds at 5,700 feet. So we stay well below the clouds. So first point is checked. And second of all, we have more than 20 miles of visibility, and we would need at least 3 nautical miles. And more than 20 miles is definitely more than 3 miles. So we are good to go there as well. After we establish this, we now want to start the engines to get a bit of power on our aircraft. To do this, we would call Tegel delivery to get our start clearance. And Tegel delivery is on 1-to-1. 0.92. So we put it on active, get our start clearance, and from Takeoff delivery we not only get the clearance to start the engines, but also our transponder code. And as we are flying VFR and we are in Europe, this code will always be 7000. So we put 7000 in the box here and switch the transponder to on. And when this red light is blinking, you know the transponder is working. Now, before we start the engines, we should shut the door and make sure that it's locked. What we can also do by checking that the door jar light is now extinct. Then we check that the autopilot is off, that the prop sync is off. We would put the anti-collision lights on, so that the red beacon on top of our tail is now blinking, warning everyone, stay away from the aircraft, we are going to start the engines fairly soon. And then we can start sequence. So first we check our temperatures, our engine is still cool, so that means we would need to prime it. The first thing to do is we would open the throttle a bit, then we would put the electric fuel pump in, put the mixture to rich, so that a little bit of fuel is going towards the engine, and you can see at this needle here it's moving, and you see the indicated fuel flow as we go to rich. And after we know there's some fuel in the engine, we put the mixture lever to cut off again. We would open the window, shout clear prop, and also make sure that the propeller is clear. Then we can close the window again, put the magnetos on, and then press the start button. And left click for the left engine, right click for the right engine. So left click, and as the engine fires, we put the fuel into rich. And now you see the vacuums coming alive. With the vacuum, our artificial horizon. RPMs looking good, manifold pressures looking good, oil pressures looking good, oil temperature is rising. So everything is like it should be. And you see now a little bit output on the alternator. So we now produce all the electricity we need by ourselves, and we have even a bit spare to charge our batteries. And now we put the electric fuel pump off again and do the same for the second engine. So open the throttle a bit, put the electric fuel pump in, prime the engine once, twice, put it to cut off, put the magnetos on, click the start button and introduce the fuel. We check vacuum is looking fine, RPMs looking good, manifold pressure is looking normal, oil pressure is looking good on both, oil temperature on engine 1 is okay, on engine 2 is still rising, but that's fine as well, and a positive alternator output. So everything's fine, we can switch the electric fuel pump on, off again, and now we have successfully started our engines. And the second thing we want to do now is the engine run-up test. On a small airfield we would do this at the runway holding point, but we are on a busy international airport and we don't want all the big passenger jets queuing behind us, so we do the engine run-up test here in our parking position. So first thing to check is that the parking brake is set, because otherwise we would end up in these fuel trucks over here and that would be a nasty accident. Then we check our engine temperatures, everything's looking nice here, very nice. And then we verify that the prop levers are fully forward, that the mixture levers are fully forward, and we put the throttle to about 1500 RPM. So, and now it's on 1500 RPM. So we put the prop sync on and off and monitor the drop in RPM. Nothing really happens, that's very nice. We put the prop controls into feather. And again, you see nearly no drop, and the drop shouldn't be bigger than 500 RPM. Then we take a look at our engine instruments. Everything's looking nice here, vacuum's looking nice, and now we advance the throttle to 2200 RPM, what would be our normal cruise setting. So right about here, again the same, prop sync, on off, you don't see any drop, very nice. Then we put in feather, and now you see the RPM is dropping about 200-250 RPM, and the drop shouldn't be bigger than 300 in this case, so we are good there as well. Then we do the same for the left engine and right engine. Everything's looking nice there as well, about 250 RPM drop again. After this, we will check our max, so that we can see if we have a fault spark plugs or something like this. So we switch the magneto off, monitor the drop, and you see again the needles are barely moving. That's very nice, and the drop shouldn't be bigger than 150 RPM, and the difference between the left and right mag of one engine shouldn't be bigger than 50 RPM. But you saw nearly no needle movement, so our spark plugs are in excellent shape. Then we check our engine instruments. Again, vacuum's looking fine, temperature's looking fine, everything's looking fine there. And then we put the engines into idle again. And we make sure that when the engines are in idle, the RPM doesn't drop below 500, and you see it stops right about 600, so everything's fine. We are very confident now in the state of our engine. Now we would set up the aircraft for taxi. So the first thing to check there are the radios, and after takeoff delivery, what we have inactive now, we would need a takeoff ground, so that's 121.75. So we put this in active, and takeoff tower, what would be the next frequency on 124.52. We put already in standby, so that on the runway holding point we just have to press the button. By pressing the little knob, we switch between COM1 and NAV1, and now we can set up the VOR frequencies we will be needing. And the first VOR we need is first in Balder, and this is on 113.3. So we put this on active, and you see here FWE as identifier, very nice. And next frequency we will need is then cluster VOR, a second VOR, and this is on 115.15. So we put this in standby, and then we switch back to the COM radio, because there we will change the frequencies much more frequently than at the NAV radio. On our COM2 radio, we put the international emergency frequency in on 121.5. So that in case something happened, we just have to flick this button and don't have to fill those frequencies. And on NAV2 radio, we put also the first invalid VOR in, so 113.3. And now everything is set up on the radio stack, and now we would set up our instruments. So the first instrument to check and set up is our altimeter. So we have here this little knob to change the altimeter setting, and here in our ATIS we got the QNH, and as we are in Europe, we got the QNH in millibar, so it's this window. In North America you would get it in inches of mercury, so you would use this window. And our pressure at the moment is 1030 millibar, so we set this to 1030 millibar. or you can also do the lazy version and just press B on your keyboard. After we set the altimeter, we verify that the readout is correct. So at the moment we have a readout of 126 feet. Ticket's airport elevation is 122 feet, so we are reasonably close enough to be fully confident in our altimeter. The next thing to set up is our navigation instrument. So we have here our horizontal situation indicator, or called HSI, what works with our nav1 radio, and we have here the VFR indicator, what works with nav2 radio. And on our HSI we have two knobs. This one moves our heading bug, and this heading bug is also for the autopilot heading select, and we will put this to our initial heading, and as always will be runway heading, and in case of Tegel runway 8 this is 79 degrees, so we set it to 79. Then the second knob is for our course, and after our initial heading we want to intercept the 330 degree radial of the first invalid VOR. As we are flying towards the VOR, coming from the west, we will take the 330 degree and subtract 180 degrees, and this gives us the course of 150 degrees. So we set the course to 150 degrees, like so, and we do the same for our VOR indicator, also 150 degrees. So, and you may notice this little nav flag here, or this red flag here. This tells us that we aren't allowed to use the radio navigation at the moment, because at the moment we don't receive the VOR station. So everything what it shows us is basically rubbish. I mean, we don't get any signal, and so we get this little nav flag to warn us, don't trust the information. As soon as we are up in the air, we receive the VOR, and you will see that the nav flags are disappearing and this needle is moving outwards. So, and then we can also put our distance measurement unit on. Very nice. Then we would fasten our seatbelts. We would put the probe heat on and the anti-ice if it's required, but we have 50 degrees outside, so at our altitude there will be about 9 degrees, and we also don't encounter clouds, and dew point and temperatures over 10 degrees apart from each other. In very short terms we won't encounter icing conditions, so we can leave the anti-ice off. Then get our taxi clearance, verify that no one is standing directly in front of the aircraft, and when there's no one standing we can put taxi lights on, and if there would someone be standing directly in front of the aircraft we would blind them, so in this case we wouldn't turn on the taxi light quite yet. Then we can release the parking brake, change our view, and before we do this we go to the overhead and put all the lights on. That's not really necessary, but I like lights in my aircraft. Then we change our view, advance the throttle very slowly, very gently, and start our taxi. So the aircraft is moving now, so we pull back the throttle a bit and start our turn. And you don't want to go fast with this aircraft on the ground, because otherwise it gets uncontrollable. And as we are moving, we also check our instruments, so we make sure that the artificial horizon doesn't show anything crazy, there's no climb indicated, and that the HSI and the compass is moving as we move as well. And we're going a bit too fast now, so we pull back on the throttle, and now taxi down to the runway. And that's it for the first part. I hope you really liked it, and if you have questions, just write it in the comments below and I try to answer them as quickly and correctly as possible. If you spot a mistake, what can happen? I mean, I'm not a trained pilot, so let me know as well, and also tell me what's wrong, why, and how it's done correctly. And then I just have to say thank you very much for watching, and see you at the next part. Bye bye.